I think we've got a lovely segue from the presentation from Albert and Janoy on Black Men Teach to the husband and wife team, Nadine and Ethan, who are about to join us to talk about the work of Aspiring Heads, systemic stories addressing racial inequalities, thinking about representation of head teachers around the country. Can we bring them on, please, Richard? Good morning. How's team? How are you both, team?
We're doing very well, thank you. Good to see you.
Lovely to see you both. So I'll disappear. Over to you, to your presentation, and I'll be back in 10 minutes to ask you some questions.
Amazing, no problem. Well, good morning, everyone. We hope that you're doing well. And first of all, let me congratulate Diverse Ed in advance for such an amazing event. And it's an honor to be asked to speak about representation and to share what it means to us. And we hope everyone tuned in can be inspired and draw from what we present today. So recently, I've stepped further into the education space. And one thing I've noticed that stand out to me that is the importance and the love for policies. We all have a policy, don't we? That beautifully written course of action that ensures our organization or group works within a desired boundary, and of course, is beneficial for all, right? Well, this morning, we like to remind you of a well-known and commonly practiced policy that is rarely spoken about. And here it is.
The Black policy. Be prepared to have your skin or hair touched, stroked, or picked at different points throughout the week. If you attempt to be assertive, you may be classified as aggressive and probably considered a troublemaker. If you raise a complaint or concern, it will be dismissed as your voice has little value. If you do not fit in with our culture, i.e., go to the pub on Fridays, you will not be seen as a true team player and will probably miss opportunities for promotion. If you speak very well, there will be questions by staff team, and they will be surprised that you can do that. Please note that if you are a Black man and are tall, you will be seen as a threat to others. Being a teacher in the classroom should remain your long-term ambition, as you will be continually told you have the potential, but you are not quite ready yet for that leadership role. However, if that role is relating to behavior, you will certainly get that role. Please note that if we have appointed you, it's possibly to try out having a Black teacher. Be prepared to have your performance judged much more heavily and harshly than other races. And also just remember, the darker you are, the less you will eventually be paid. If a child displays racial abuse towards you, please do not worry. They did not really mean it. You will also probably feel like you don't belong here, as there is no one else that looks like you. Black Caribbean boys have performed less well for ages. Please don't be concerned by that, because it's been like that for decades. And lastly, please be prepared to lead on Black History Month. And also just remember, only talk about Blackness in October.
What you have just heard is an example of an unwritten and unregulated policy that has somehow found its way into the heart of our education system. And this is not an exhausted list. Evidence of its existence can be found in several places, and as a start, we look to a number of Black educators who we've had the privilege of working with. And here are some of their experiences.
You need to change your hair. It's not professional enough. You are too Black. I wish Trump could have come to this country to get rid of immigrants like you. Your name does not sound African enough. Staff alluding to Western names being the acceptable standard, and having your skin and your hair touched on a regular basis. Do you see the correlation? Decades of research, reports, and findings have also exposed the impact of its presence. But with all that being said, I'm sure you would all agree that such a policy presents an issue that needs an unceasing collective effort to being redressed. And my hope is that you all listening today will agree.
Exactly, because change is most definitely needed, because for several years, we've heard the calls for change, and often those calls only seem to come from a very few. An unfortunate police murder shook the world, and a new powerful slogan penetrated the ignorance of many nations, which gave hope that at some point, change is on its way. However, in order to make change, we all need to be in the room. And according to history, Black and brown people that look like me and us are often left out. And this seems to be an unfortunate present reality for the UK education system. Just over 1% of head teachers in the UK are Black, with only a minute difference with regards to senior leaders. Let that sink in for a moment. We must ask ourselves, what does this mean for our children in our classrooms? And how did we allow this to happen? And it's these questions that inspired us to create Aspiring Heads, a social enterprise that seeks to tackle racial disparities within education. And our approach is not to point fingers or play the blame game, but rather be an advocate for underrepresented Black educators through awareness, leadership training, and development. Our flagship program takes educators through a journey of inspiration through the lived experiences of some of the few senior Black leaders in the UK, and highlights the pitfalls and necessities of what it means to be a Black leader in education.
So, the challenge. Now, some may say, what a brilliant idea and initiative. However, we know not everyone will agree with or support the more radical approaches to bring about positive change. Expectantly, our efforts and approach have and will be met with some stiff-necked individuals who cannot understand why this whole Black this and Black that stuff is necessary. We have been told the following in our journey so far: you've had more of your people on adverts. What more do you want? We've also been told, and look how racist you are for putting on an event to elevate Black leaders. It's disgraceful. What about people of other colours?
And having personally experienced the above backlash that Nadine just mentioned, and more, from people who have completely missed the point of why we do what we do, it can leave one to ask the question. And I ask, if something of great value experiences deficiency, is it not only right that measures are put in place to create and restore that abundance? It's like someone approaching an organization that exists to support endangered species, like rhinos, saying, you don't support goldfish. You should be ashamed of yourselves. We believe that resources and efforts must be put in place to support future Black leaders in order to see a change to the existing and embarrassing statistics.
So lastly, what action will you take? Here are some recommendations. Join aspiring heads in raising awareness of this issue. Use your voice and resources to support your Black colleagues, clients, and customers, etc. Use whatever power and privilege you may have. And lastly, possibly sponsor an educator or group of educators to join the Aspiring Heads program. For more information, check out aspiringheads.com, and you can follow us on any social media platform at Aspiring Heads. Thank you. I'm Nadine Bernard.
I'm Ethan Bernard.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you both. The comments in the chat, it's a sobering state of affairs, isn't it? You've just given people a bit of a reality check about the lived experience. And we've heard from Albert and Janoy about teachers, but like Nadine, when I met you 5-6 years ago, like you were one of a minority with your age, with your race, with your gender as a head teacher. Can you just really reiterate to the audience, why is it important for us to get more Black men and women into leadership teams and into future headships?
Well, in terms of our theory trained, we know that representation has an impact on the upcoming generation. Even at my school, the children being able to see someone who looks like them gives them, it tells them that, yes, you can. It's not just this distant thing where people are saying you can be whatever you want to be or you can be the next leader. They can actually see it. When you don't see it, you question whether it's possible. And so having something like this and raising more Black leaders creates a great, more diversity in voice, which is really, really important.
And it's that pipeline as well, isn't it? Because it's not just at head teacher level. We've got a lack of representation when it comes to CEOs of the academy groups and then localities as well. And I know that you've got representation in your LEA, because I've seen some photos of some visits you've had at your school recently. What's the power of that for you as a head teacher, to be able to see a woman of colour actually at that executive level across the system?
I think for me personally, I've always, even stepping into, I had that belief that I could step into headship, but with everyone, there's always those niggly voices that are always telling you, you do not deserve this or you do not belong here. And being able to see others who look like me in those more senior positions, and even equipping myself by having coaches and mentors who look like me, where I can learn from their experience, lived experiences, to help me, to help equip myself. But then also what I'm doing is equipping those who are coming behind me. It's so important to put that ladder down and to help others climb, because it is not an easy journey. And even though I am in headship, even that journey itself brings its challenges. Right. So it's always great to have others that I can look to and share those same stories.
And Ethan, we met at dinner the night before the very first BayMed event. That must have been 5 years ago. And you referenced to the audience that you're doing more work in education. Do you want to talk about your sector and how you've done this segue over?
Yeah, so I spent the last 20 years in the youth work sector supporting young people. And it's funny now working with Aspiring Heads, because I had many experiences where I had many young Black boys sent to me from schools and teachers saying, well, we don't know what they're going through, we're not, Black like them, you must know, so can you help? And I've seen the impact of what it has to not have representation within schools. So transitioning over to now working with Aspiring Heads, supporting my wife and supporting such an amazing initiative, I've been shocked by some of the stories that I've heard from teachers, and it's just kind of giving me more passion to help make a difference and a change in this education space.
And such an interesting perspective and lens, thinking about the fallout for the young people, but also what you've learned through Nadine as the husband of a head teacher must have been quite eye-opening throughout her career. But I know also you're bringing up Black boys in London, and it's thinking about their legacy, isn't it? And thinking about who's going to teach them and who's going to lead them in the future. What sort of conversations do you have around the kitchen table with the kids, out of interest?
Oh gosh, we have a whole lot of conversations. So our boy, I remember Black Panther, for instance. Our boys were gobsmacked to see a film with so many Black people on it. And they asked us so much questions, particularly around, Dad, what happens if a gang tries to approach me? Sometimes they say, Dad, I think our teachers are racist. They only seem to target the Black boys, etc. And we're able to sit down and have conversations with them and share to them that, you know what, we need to keep pressing on. Your mum and dad are working hard to try and fight against issues like this. And it's really, really important. But most importantly, having a platform like Aspiring Heads gives us leaders that we can expose our children to, that we didn't have when we were young. So they can see leaders in so many different fields and say, you know what, we can aspire to be different. We don't need to go down the gang route. We don't need to go down the street life route. We have so many examples. And that's what that means. That means the most to us for our children.
Absolutely. And final question, Nadine, for you. I mean, Janoi and Albert talked about isolation, and I know that networking is really important for all leaders, but particularly when you are in a minoritized or a marginalized group. Do you mean what's the kind of what's what I'm looking for? Why advocate for people to join Aspiring Heads as a network? How does that support you on your journey?
Well, I know how lonely it felt for a long time. You know, I did have significant individuals, but I felt that I was completely alone with these things that were happening to me. You know, for example, someone refusing to shake my hand, you know, just looking at me and, you know, alluding that I should speak more like a white person. In that, I actually started to question whether I was capable and not actually recognizing, no, that's a deficiency of someone else, not myself. And so being in a network, you're able to realize that it's not only you, that we all will face these challenges. But however, it does not mean that you cannot succeed and you cannot elevate and being, you know, it helps you, being in a network helps you galvanize the strength that you need to push on in working in predominantly white spaces. So yes, network is a great strength.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that feeling part of something and having that the collective wisdom, but also the retention, isn't it? Because if you feel isolated and you're the only, actually there's people there who can help you see perhaps a different perspective and realize that we are going to collectively change this. And when I met your alumni students last week, like, what an amazing group of leaders and heads of the future. Like, I'm excited in 10 years' time to see the legacy of the work you're both doing. So thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you for all the work you do outside of the day jobs. I appreciate how much time and energy that takes, and the legacy you're creating. So go and spend some time with the kids. Go and enjoy your weekend. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just thank you, Hannah, for just everything that you do. You are absolutely incredible and you have been a champion for me. So just continue. Thank you.
My pleasure. See you soon, guys. Take care.